Imagine this. You wake up in a world where every desire is instantly gratified. A touch screen by your bed delivers dopamine on demand. Endless scrolling, curated pleasure, algorithmic bliss. Your fridge stocks only decadent foods engineered for maximal sensory delight. Your relationships are frictionless, your work effortless, your leisure boundless. No pain, no struggle, no unmet cravings. And yet, you feel nothing. Not emptiness, not sadness, just a hollow neutrality. As if you've been hollowed out by the very things meant to fulfill you. The pleasures that once thrilled you now feel like faint echoes. The world is a buffet, but every bite tastes like ash. This is not dystopian fiction. This is the logical endpoint of a culture obsessed with pleasure, where happiness is conflated with hedonism, where meaning is outsourced to sensation, where the self becomes a passive consumer of its own diminishing returns. Here's the paradox. We live in the most pleasure-saturated era in human history, yet rates of anxiety, depression, and existential malaise have never been higher. We have more ways to feel good, yet less capacity to feel alive. What if the pursuit of pleasure isn't just failing us? What if it's destroying us? Consider the last time you truly felt joy. Not the fleeting spike of a notification or the numb glaze of a binge, but the kind of joy that lingers, the kind that comes from struggle, from creation, from something earned. Why does pleasure, in excess, seem to erase the very thing it promises? The ancient Greeks had a word for this: hedonic adaptation. The more we consume, the more our baseline shifts, leaving us forever chasing a satisfaction that recedes like a horizon. Modern neuroscience confirms it. Dopamine isn't about reward, it's about anticipation. The moment you grasp the thing you craved, the circuit resets, leaving you hungry for the next hit. But this isn't just a chemical glitch. It's a philosophical crisis. Friedrich Nietzsche warned of the last men, creatures who blink placidly in a world of comfort, having lost the capacity for greatness, for suffering, for wanting anything beyond their petty satisfactions. Jean-Paul Sartre saw pleasure-seeking as a form of bad faith, a way to avoid the terrifying freedom of defining oneself. And Viktor Frankl, surviving the horrors of Auschwitz, observed that those who clung to mere pleasure were the first to collapse, while those who found meaning in suffering endured. Yet here we are, building our own gilded cages. We optimize our lives for ease, numb our discomforts with distractions, and wonder why we feel so dead inside. The question isn't whether pleasure can fulfill us. It's why we still believe it can, despite all evidence to the contrary. What if the real addiction isn't to pleasure itself, but to the avoidance of something deeper, the unresolved void that pleasure temporarily silences? What are we so desperate not to face? This is the great unraveling. The closer we get to the illusion of total gratification, the more the truth claws at us. Pleasure alone is a counterfeit currency. It cannot buy meaning. It cannot sustain the soul. And the harder we chase it, the more it consumes us. But there is a way out. The answer lies not in renouncing pleasure, but in understanding its proper place and the darker, more vital forces it has displaced. To uncover them, we must first confront the hidden machinery that keeps us trapped. Every day, you make choices: what to eat, what to watch, how to spend your free time, believing they are yours. But what if these choices are not expressions of freedom, but reflexes of conditioning? What if the pursuit of pleasure is not a natural drive, but a carefully engineered substitute for something far more essential? The illusion of choice. Modern society runs on a simple transaction. You trade attention for dopamine, time for convenience, depth for distraction. The algorithms know you better than you know yourself. They predict your desires before you feel them, feed you content that keeps you scrolling, and reinforce loops of consumption that feel like autonomy but function like addiction. This is not an accident. It is the logical outcome of a system designed to manufacture craving. Psychologist Carl Jung warned of the shadow, the repressed, unacknowledged parts of the self that, when ignored, dictate our behavior in unconscious ways. Today, our collective shadow is an insatiable hunger, masked as liberation. We are told to treat ourselves, to live in the moment, to do what feels good. But beneath these mantras lurks a deeper truth. We are running from something, the fear of the void. French philosopher Blaise Pascal observed that all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. We fill our lives with noise, endless entertainment, compulsive busyness, superficial relationships, not because these things fulfill us, but because they shield us from the terrifying silence beneath. Arthur Schopenhauer called this the pendulum of boredom and suffering. When we are not in pain, we are bored. And so we oscillate between chasing pleasure and numbing discomfort, never realizing that the real enemy is not suffering, but meaninglessness. Why does pleasure fail to satisfy? Because it was never meant to. Dopamine is not the molecule of happiness. It is the molecule of more. It does not signal fulfillment. It fuels pursuit. The moment you attain the thing you craved, the cycle resets, leaving you restless for the next hit. This is why the richer, safer, and more comfortable we become, the more we report feeling unmoored. The Great Substitution. Aldous Huxley, in Brave New World, envisioned a dystopia where people were controlled not through pain, but through pleasure. Soma, the fictional drug of choice, kept citizens docile, distracted, and utterly devoid of deeper longing. His warning was prescient. A really efficient totalitarian state would be one in which the all-powerful executive of political bosses and their army of managers control a population of slaves who do not have to be coerced because they love their servitude. We are not forced into hedonism. We choose it because the alternative is too unsettling. To sit with stillness, to face the unresolved questions of existence, to grapple with mortality, purpose, and the weight of freedom. These are the terrors we flee into the arms of cheap dopamine. The lost art of desire. Friedrich Nietzsche declared that he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. But what happens when the why is reduced to mere sensation? When pleasure becomes the highest goal, desire itself atrophies. True desire, the kind that fuels art, love, struggle, and transcendence, requires lack. It demands friction, uncertainty, even suffering. The addict does not crave the drug because it brings joy, but because it ends craving. In the same way, a life addicted to pleasure is not a life of fulfillment, but of cessation, an endless loop of hunger and temporary relief. We have mistaken comfort for happiness, distraction for peace, and consumption for living. But the human soul was not made for perpetual satiation. It was made for meaning, and meaning is always found on the other side of resistance. The turning point. This is not a call to abandon pleasure, but to see it for what it is. A fleeting sensation, not a life's purpose. The real question is not how to feel good, but what you are willing to suffer for. Because beneath the surface of our collective hedonism lies an unspoken truth. We are not afraid of pain. We are afraid of wasting our lives. And that fear is justified. The pursuit of pleasure operates like a slow poison. It doesn't announce its damage with crisis, but with erosion, A dulled attention span here, a weakened tolerance for discomfort there, a creeping sense of emptiness that no amount of stimulation can fill. The consequences are everywhere, yet they remain invisible because we've been trained to see them as normal. The atrophy of will. Every time you reach for your phone to numb a moment of boredom, every time you choose the path of least resistance, every time you indulge a craving simply because it's there, you are not just making a choice, you are unmaking your ability to choose. Neurologically, willpower is like a muscle. It strengthens with use and atrophies with neglect. Studies on delayed gratification, from the Stanford marshmallow experiment to modern fMRI research, reveal a disturbing pattern. The more we succumb to immediate rewards, the harder it becomes to resist them in the future. This isn't just about snacks or screen time. It's about the slow death of agency. When every discomfort is medicated, every impulse indulged, every challenge avoided, we don't just lose the capacity for discipline. We lose the capacity for transformation. The person who cannot endure boredom will never know deep focus. The person who flees every discomfort will never build resilience. The person who chases only pleasure will never meet their own potential. The hollowing of experience. Pleasure is not the opposite of pain. It's the opposite of presence. The more we optimize life for seamless enjoyment, the less we actually experience it. Think of the last time you scrolled through a flawless Instagram feed, watched a bingeable show, or ate a meal while distracted. Did you feel alive or merely occupied? The paradox of hedonism is this: the harder you try to capture joy, the more it slips through your fingers. True richness of experience comes not from the absence of friction, but from engagement, from the friction itself. The musician loses herself in the struggle of the performance. The athlete finds flow in the burn of exertion. The thinker touches brilliance only at the edge of frustration. But when we engineer our lives to avoid all resistance, we don't eliminate suffering, we eliminate depth. The social fabric unraveled. This is not just a personal crisis, it's a cultural one. When pleasure becomes the highest value, relationships turn transactional. We seek people who make us feel good, rather than those who challenge us to grow. Art becomes content, designed for quick consumption rather than lasting impact. Politics becomes spectacle, leadership becomes pandering, and discourse becomes performance. The ancient Greeks had two words for love: philia, the deep bond of shared struggle, and eros, the fiery thrill of passion. Modernity has replaced both with dopamine hits. Swipe right intimacy, viral outrage, parasocial connections that demand nothing and therefore mean nothing. We are the most connected generation in history and the most profoundly lonely. The spiritual bankruptcy. At the heart of this crisis lies a vacuum, a God-shaped hole, as Pascal might say. For most of human history, cultures built meaning around struggle. Rites of passage, spiritual trials, the sacredness of sacrifice. Today, we have no rituals to guide us through suffering, only an endless buffet of escapes. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust, wrote that the pursuit of happiness is self-defeating. The more you aim for it, the more you miss it. Happiness, he argued, is always a byproduct of meaning. But meaning requires something beyond the self. A cause, a creation, a commitment that transcends momentary pleasure. Without it, we are left with what philosopher Byung-Chul Han calls the burnout society. A world where people are not oppressed by external forces, but exploited by their own freedom. We are free to consume, free to distract, free to optimize ourselves into oblivion. And we do so willingly, desperately, because no one ever taught us how to face the void, the point of no return. The danger is not that pleasure will destroy us suddenly, but that it will replace us. That we will wake up one day to find we've spent our lives chasing sensations, only to realize we were never really there. The clock is ticking. Every mindless scroll, every numbed-out binge, every time you choose comfort over growth, you are voting for the kind of person you will become. But there is another way. You've seen the trap now, how pleasure hollows you out, how comfort weakens you, how distraction steals your life one swipe at a time. But awareness alone isn't freedom. To break free, you must wage war on the invisible forces that keep you addicted to your own diminishment. This is not about moderation. It's about rebellion. The first rule of resistance: stop feeding the beast. Every addiction survives on one law. Supply creates demand. The more you indulge, the more you crave. But the inverse is also true. Starve the circuit and it weakens. This isn't asceticism for its own sake. It's strategic deprivation. Reset your dopamine. Go 24 hours without screens. Walk somewhere without headphones. Eat a meal without stimulation. The withdrawal will feel like madness. That's how you know it's working. Introduce friction. Delete the easy access apps. Make junk food inconvenient to reach. Add steps between yourself and your vices. Pleasure thrives on immediacy. Disrupt its rhythm. Tolerate boredom. Sit with nothing but your thoughts for 10 minutes, then 20, then an hour. The unbearable itch will pass, and beneath it, you'll find a clarity you forgot existed. You're not denying pleasure. You're reclaiming choice. The second rule: weaponize discomfort. Ancient Stoics practiced voluntary hardship, sleeping on floors, fasting in times of plenty, bathing in cold water, not to punish themselves, but to remember, I am stronger than my circumstances. Modern science confirms their wisdom. When you deliberately embrace discomfort, your stress response becomes more resilient. Harvard's stress inoculation studies prove this. Your baseline happiness rises. See hedonic adaptation reversal in neuropsychology. Your sense of agency expands. Bandura's self-efficacy theory. Start small. Take cold showers. Walk without checking your phone. Learn something difficult. Each act is a strike against the tyranny of ease. The third rule: cultivate obsession. Pleasure disperses your energy. Obsession concentrates it. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to bear almost anyhow." But the modern malady is that we have no why worth suffering for. Find one. Identify what makes time disappear for you, not what kills time, but what transforms it. Pursue it ruthlessly, even poorly at first. The artist who makes bad art is still closer to mastery than the spectator who consumes only the best. Let it hurt. If your pursuit doesn't frustrate you sometimes, it's not stretching you. This is the alchemy of meaning. Take the energy you once spent fleeing discomfort and pour it into creation instead. The fourth rule: reforge your environment. You will never rise above your surroundings. As psychologist Kurt Lewin proved, behavior is a function of the person and their environment. Purge the predatory. Unfollow accounts that hack your attention. Stop frequenting places that exist solely to monetize your cravings. Build temples to depth. Create spaces where only meaningful work happens. No distractions, no compromises. Find your tribe. Surround yourself with people who embody the intensity you aspire to. You'll either rise to their level or flee. Both outcomes are useful. The fifth rule: practice existential gymnastics. Viktor Frankl's prisoners who survived the camps shared one trait. They could reinterpret suffering as purpose. you must learn the same mental jujitsu. When discomfort arises, name it. This is the feeling of my comfort zone expanding. Reframe it. What if this isn't an obstacle, but the path itself? Weaponize it. How can I use this to strengthen my resolve? The moment of truth, this rebellion isn't about rejecting pleasure. It's about dethroning it. Pleasure makes a fine servant, but a terrible master. The path ahead isn't easy. There will be days you crawl back to old comforts. But each time you choose meaning over numbness, struggle over sedation, presence over escape, you rewrite your nervous system's definition of what life is for. The cage door was never locked. You just forgot how to push. Not how can I feel good, but what is worth suffering for. Not how do I escape pain, but what pain will I embrace. This is the axis on which your life turns. The grand illusion unmasked. For years, you believed pleasure was the destination. But here's the truth your bones always knew. Pleasure was never the point. Meaning is. And meaning, real meaning, only exists on the other side of resistance. The musician bleeds for the perfect note. The athlete breaks herself to shatter limits. The lover stays when it hurts. The thinker stares into the abyss until it stares back. These are not exceptions to happiness. They are its very fabric. The alchemy of suffering. Viktor Frankl's prisoners who found purpose in Auschwitz didn't just survive. They lived more intensely than most do in freedom. Ancient alchemists sought to turn lead into gold. You hold that same power. The lead of your suffering becomes gold when you choose its meaning. That anxiety you numb with scrolling, it's energy waiting to be channeled. That boredom you escape with dopamine, it's the birthplace of creation. That relationship friction you avoid, it's the forge where real connection is made. The death that makes you alive. Nietzsche's God is dead wasn't a celebration. It was a warning. When we killed transcendence, we didn't become rational. We made pleasure our new God. But there's a more ancient wisdom. You must lose your life to find it. Lose the life of constant comfort. Lose the identity of passive consumer. Lose the fear of your own depth. What remains will terrify you at first. Raw, unfiltered existence. Then, it will liberate you. The final choice. This isn't philosophy, it's physics. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. Your suffering, your longing, your restless energy, they will go somewhere. Will you let them dissipate as cheap dopamine hits, or forge them into something eternal? The answer writes your destiny. The last thing you'll ever need to hear. You were never broken. You were never lacking. You were only ever asleep. Now you're waking up. The world needs you awake. Go. If this video has made you see the world differently, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel here. We don't go with the flow. We question, reflect, and seek to understand the truths that no one wants you to see. If you want to continue this journey of self-discovery and liberation, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications because this is just the beginning. See you in the next video.